Welcome, everybody. Welcome to Sketching Encounters. This is Sibylla Irwin, and I have an incredible guest this week. Her name is Lori Stubbs, and she's going to be sharing her encounter with us. Welcome, Lori.
Thank you, Sibylla, for having me. And first and foremost, I just want to tell you what an honor and a privilege it is to be able to share my encounter with you.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you for choosing me. It fills my heart.
Well, you're definitely somebody that's trustworthy, that has empathy, and you do truly care. And I think that makes a difference when you're sharing these encounters.
Yes, ma'am. And you found me on YouTube, and can you share your experience of what made you decide, or how it occurred for you? Like, what happened?
Okay, I was watching different YouTube channels, and I came across your channel, and this specific YouTube encounter. I believe the gentleman's name was Mark, and I was just intrigued with his story, and he began to share about an encounter he had with male Sasquatch, and it was kind of a face-to-face in between this glass. And the story that he was telling, the Sasquatch eyes turned, back in his head, and there was like this light that he was zapped with, and he was incapacitated.
Yes.
And it just really threw me for a loop. I just started bawling because he had no control over his situation and what was happening. And I didn't understand, like, why am I still crying about this? I've never had a Sasquatch encounter, and I don't even know this gentleman. And it was just something, Sibylla, that lingered on. It just wasn't stopping. Not the tears, but it was like I had a gut punch. And it was devastating. Like all week long, I was just either weeping or just feeling this really uneasiness inside my inner man, my spirit. And so about 2 weeks went by, and I was like, what is this? I mean, because I couldn't correlate what was going on, why his experience triggered me so much. So after about 2 weeks, I'm like, God, I'm a woman of faith. And I had to turn to God, and I said, God, what is this? And he didn't speak to my heart right away or reveal anything right away. But about a week later, he had showed me an encounter I had when I was 7 years old, around 7 or 8 years old. And the image that he showed me was this 3-foot alien standing in a corner in my bedroom at night next to my closet. And I was like, wow, what am I supposed to do with this? And this isn't the first time that I had thought about, this encounter. I mean, over the years, it had, raised its ugly head, but I had a really good way of suppressing it, pressing it down, boxing. I put in a neat little box and tucked it away. And then I would just kind of go on with my life. So that wasn't the first time I had experienced that memory of that encounter. But this time it wasn't going away. I wasn't able to tuck it away. I wasn't able to just neatly pack it and suppress it. And so I thought, well, what do I do? So that's when I reached out to you, because I knew it was something I needed to deal with. Because see, for me, in my short little life I've lived, I realized that when you're dealing with a trauma or a situation that's very painful, and I'm speaking totally for me, I can't just continue to suppress it, because if it's ugly inside what's going on, it's going to come out in the way I speak, how I maybe treat myself, treat others, and even in my health. So I think it's really important to, and I know enough that, okay, I have this situation that just isn't going away. I'm going to have to deal with it. And I knew it just wasn't something I can neatly pack away and suppress. And God didn't create us to deal with trauma in that way. I mean, it has to come up and out. And we leak. We're human. We leak. So these things aren't going to just go away. And like I said, I know enough about healing to know I needed to do something. So I sent you an email, and I pretty much had some questions about, why did this encounter happen to me? And I wanted to try to figure out why this was bothering me.
So. Oh, I'm so glad you did. Can you tell us a little bit about your childhood, like where you grew up, and um, do you have memories like from that exact, like when you were 7 or 8 years old? I would like to know like what you thought about what was actually happening to you then. Like what were your thoughts back then?
Well, my situation was it was like a 2-week period of time where this encounter happened. And it was basically this gray would be in my room, and I would be in my bed just like Mark, incapacitated. I couldn't move. I couldn't yell. I couldn't scream. And that's devastating for a child or even an adult. And so that happened over a period of time. And it was hard because my family wouldn't believe me. I had a brother that was kind of experiencing the same encounter that I was. Like he witnessed this gray in the corner as well. And I had shared with you that that he had given my brother, two brothers, this. It was kind of like silly putty, but it had like a million lights in it. So it was kind of like a distraction. And my brother said when he looked over, I wasn't there. And they ran around looking for me. And I was outside just staring up into, into the trees. So, I mean, this happened like every day. And I just want to encourage people that are watching, if you're a child, your child or a child is saying to you that they're experiencing something or they're seeing something, please don't discount it. Because, I mean, it took all these years for me to deal with this. And the pain was so horrific from my encounter as an adult. It was tough, painful as a child. But as an adult, I mean, literally, I was like, oh, I should have never contacted Sabella because of the pain that I was experiencing. So don't discount when somebody is sharing their experience, especially a child, and try to investigate, what might be going on.
Right.
But anyway, my family didn't believe me. I was trying to explain to them what I was experiencing, and I don't blame them. I think that we all have this default setting of a denial when we can explain something that is not, explainable. So, I was trying to explain it, and I just really stopped talking about it because they weren't hearing me anyway. But I also experienced, I had a tracking device that was in the top of my crown of my head. This is all during this same period of time. My mother was combing my hair and she kept hitting something hard, on the crown of my head. And it was just like, she tried pulling it with her nail, it wouldn't come out. And she eventually told my brother, go get a pair of pliers. And so she had pulled out this device out of my head. It was about 2 inches long and had kind of these jewels on it. And it was kind of spiraling that went in my head spiral, like a corkscrew. That's the way my brother explained it. Even with that, something tangible as this, like this isn't even something from here. How could it wind up in my brain? Because it was in my head. It wasn't like laying on my scalp. like, and you're still not believed, and that's devastating when somebody's gone through a traumatic situation. And like people that have suffered from this, it doesn't necessarily have to be an alien encounter, but people want to, especially a child, want to be heard, understood. And that's what I love about what you do, because you allow people to share their story. And it's important. I don't think healing, this is me speaking, I don't think healing comes until we're able to speak it out and maybe even put a face to what we're seeing. So that's what I love about what you do.
Thank you. What was your mom's reaction whenever she pulled it? And did it hurt whenever she pulled it out? Did it hurt?
No, it didn't hurt. There was no blood. That's what they were really freaking out about. And my whole family was there and witnessed this. There was no blood. I was just kind of freaking out because I was looking at their reaction to what was going on. And I never saw it because my brother dropped it down a register. We laughed about that. But, and then it was gone. So
she told him, get rid of this. I mean, what did she?
No. She, he was just fascinated with it and then dropped it by accident.
Oh my God.
But she was getting it away from her because, because she couldn't explain it. How there's no logical explanation.
Like, how did it get there? Like, how?
Yeah. Oh, that's what I'm saying about the denial. It's easy to, deny it and say, hey, I don't know what this is, but then to deal with it. So that's why I'm encouraging your viewers to, investigate when these things are happening, opposed to just brushing it under the rug.
Right. Do you remember the first time, like, that you saw this creature standing in the corner?
Yes. And I was awakened and I saw it, and I'm trying to scream, and, I couldn't move. And then I wound up on the ship. I can't tell you how I got there. There's no memory of me actually, there's no light or anything like that. I was just there. And like I was sharing with you, it was so incredible because I could literally see my house. We lived in it's always the last house on the street that this happens to. But we were the last house on the street. And and I could see my house. We lived in the country, lots of woods all around us, and we had a big ball diamond. So during this 2-week period of time, it was either across the street, but it wasn't like a solid object. It was like literally you could see through it. And I could see through it because a lot of times when, they were done experimenting or whatever they were doing, they never took me back to my bed. I was always outside, like staring up, looking at this thing. But you wouldn't be able to see it if you weren't looking for it. So it was, I think the word cloak. But you could see trees and everything through it for sure. And then when I was in the ship, I could look down and see my house. And for a 7-year-old, that's devastating because you're trying to figure out, like, how did I get up here? Why am I even here to begin with? And then, how am I up here and my house is down there?
So your family would find you outside?
Yeah.
Like, the next morning, or when would they find you?
At night. Sometimes I would be in a field, and just out across the street. It was just bizarre. But my family was like, oh, Lori's sleepwalking. They likened it to me sleepwalking every night.
And had you ever been a sleepwalker?
Never. And to this day, I'm not a sleepwalker. That's what I'm saying, that, when these weird things are happening, pay attention, because it might be more than what, you think.
So when you found yourself up in the craft, can you describe the surroundings and the beings that you were seeing?
Yes. I was on this examination table, just like when you go for surgery. It was like a light, and there were three beings, real tall, a little bit different in color than the small one that was in my room. But they were real bony, like I shared with you, anorexic looking, big head, huge eyes, black eyes. I mean, literally, for a long time when you were sending the iterations, I had a hard time. I struggled with it. It was like, I'm not answering this text message because it was difficult. Yeah. But the room, it was just like a round room, and there was this table there and me strapped to it. Yeah, and there was mainly one person, or not person, being that was pretty much in charge doing all the, there was two assisting this particular one.
And how were they standing? Were they at your right side, your left side? Or...
Yes, one on each side, and the one kind of leaning over the table, like maneuvering different objects. I mean, it was definitely traumatizing.
Yeah.
And very painful.
And you could see the equipment they were using?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Can you describe?
It was basically, my head was stationary. I couldn't, move it. And it was like long needles. I mean, it was kind of, now that I think about it, Sybil, it's almost impossible what they did, because how am I able to hear? You have this long needle going in each one of your ears, just down in there, and it's not like, it's not like you're free from pain. I was experiencing all of it. So there was like long needles going in each one of my ears and my head, up my nose, and eyes. And I had just, and I'll talk about this towards the end, been hypnotized and received an awesome healing from this. But one of the things that happened under that session was, I kept sensing that there was something that they were putting in my throat, and I never could, this is, as this time went on, we were doing these iterations. It was just like, what was that? And I couldn't pinpoint it. Nothing would come to memory. But in that session, it was some kind of a thick liquid. So it's almost like you're choking, drowning. And I don't know, I couldn't tell you what the rhyme or reason for that, but it was traumatizing, for sure.
So they would pour that down your throat, kind of thing?
Yeah. And, and I would be gagging and trying to, just get away, and there was just no way.
Yeah. Do you remember a taste with that, or a smell?
No. No taste, no smell. It was just thick, just going down my throat. And I was like, wow, that's what that was. So wow. I have no idea, why. But yeah, this happened for every night. My family would just say, oh, you're dreaming. And every night I would be terrified to go to sleep, because there were, this same thing would happen. They were scraping my skin, doing all kinds of experiments, painful experiments. But this happened over a 2-week period of time.
So every night for 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm. And I would be outside, somebody would be like, oh, come get me. And I would just be in this, like, a trance, probably staring at that ship, or just out there,
And when you were standing outside, did you know at the time why you were outside, or did they wipe your memory, or did you have some recall?
Yes, I was staring at that ship majority of the time. So it didn't leave. It was just hovering, whether it was over there on the Ball Diamond or across the street. It was there,
And you knew,
but they couldn't see it.
You knew that you had been up in there. I mean, did you have a total recall of what they were doing whenever they put you back on the ground?
Yes. I mean, my memory, I had total memory. I mean, it's so vivid. to this day, there was nothing ever erased as far as that was concerned. No. And at one point in time, I remember, I think the first time I was in the ship, I mean, I was, crying. I had tears rolling down my eyes. And then the person that was the being that was in charge pretty much like telepathically told me, you're going to go back home. So it wasn't like there was nothing loving or caring or compassionate about anything. And then after that, it was all like, how can we hurt you even worse? I mean, it was devastating.
Were they also sticking needles in other parts of your body beside?
Yes.
And I don't know if you want to talk about that, but that was my experience as well.
Yeah, they did. I mean, they went up. There was needles and there was examinations for sure.
Yeah.
For a child, that's painful. And devastating.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you feel like they were, again, this is another really personal, do you feel like, see, I remember the needles in like ovaries, and my navel,
Yes.
and I felt like they were probably taking eggs.
Yes.
What are your thoughts about
that? I do. I think that, like I shared with you before, I later learned through hypnosis, the reason, because I had these questions, but they don't have souls. And so I think that they don't ever get tired of abducting people because they're trying to figure out what makes, we're each uniquely, and the Bible says we're each uniquely and wonderfully made. So my personality is going to be different from yours and, Smojo or who, and so what makes me tick is going to be different than you, Sibylla. But we all have a soul. And, this is just my belief. I think, they're very envious of that. And if they can find a way to make that happen for them by interbreeding a human with an alien, I do believe that's how you get hybrids. And I do believe there's hybrids.
Me do too. So every night for two weeks, would they do exactly the same experiments over
Yes.
and over again, or was there ever a change? Or
no, it was just the same thing. I knew, and that's what was so devastating, because the most painful part of that was the eyes for me, and what was going down my throat. I mean, you can tolerate this, but your eyes, oh my God, the pain. I don't know if you've ever cut your cornea or had some eye damage. I have, and it's. There was no amount of Novocaine. They said, we can't keep putting Novocaine in your eye because, it can cause permanent damage. So the pain of your eye being, damaged, the pain that's associated with it is excruciating. Yeah. And that's what's the hardest.
Which part of the eye were they putting the needle in? Was it
just straight? It would be like this needle, you would see it coming. Mm-hmm. Just straight. And like I said, there was never any blood or anything. I don't know how they did it. But yeah.
And was it a machine like that they brought over? And then
it was kind of like stuff they were shifting. They would shift around. It was all metallic looking. Yes. And it was like something they would shift around and just keep reusing it.
Yeah.
In all those areas.
Did you hear them ever talking to each other telepathically?
No, I did not. The only time I ever heard anything telepathically is when, the one spoke to me and, through and said, you're going to go home. And that was, everything else was just silent. Everybody knew what to do. It was just like clockwork,
Were they?
I mean, they all knew.
Yeah. Were their movements smooth or were they jerky?
No. Yeah, it wasn't smooth. No. I mean, and they were about 7 foot tall and, near that bony. I mean, you're not going to have any smooth, movements about, there's no way.
Did they have suits on, or could you
No,
describe the skin? They were,
it was smooth. The skin was smooth, but it was just it was bony. I mean, it was it was unhealthy looking. Like I said, anorexic. Yeah, the skin was smooth. I didn't notice anything that wasn't out of the ordinary as far as that was concerned.
and were they wearing anything?
No, those eyes, they were wearing those eyes well, I'll tell you.
It's so great that you can laugh about this.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, I mean, obviously some healing is already like really.
Well, that's only because, what happened during my hypnosis. Because, I'll tell you, Sibylla, I never knew reaching out or going to your channel and watching, being triggered by that. I mean, it wasn't even the same situation. Here's this Sasquatch and here's this alien, two different people, but this trigger. I never would have realized in a million years how my life would have been altered by going to sketching encounters. And not only that, in a million years, I never would have realized the pain that I suffered on a daily basis, because it was like, how, am I going to be triggered today? And and I shared with you, I was by my mom's bedside for 21 hours before she died. And that pain was excruciating. And this was about equivalent. The trauma that I dealt with after, all the stuff started to surface. But yeah, the tears were just, and it was uncontrollable. It was like, I'm a minister. I have people to minister to. But one thing I realized when you're going through trauma, hurting people hurt other people. And so I couldn't avoid. I have grandkids. I have a son, a daughter-in-law. So I was like forced, and a church, that I'm constantly praying for people and loving on them. And, it was like I was thrown into this whirlwind, because it was like I was dealing with these past emotions from this encounter. And I still had to operate, and I still had to work and do all these things. But never in a million years would I associate the amount of pain that I went through. This is after the fact, and, was triggered. And never in a million years would I believe the awesome healing that I received, from going into hypnosis.
Yeah.
But yeah, there was lots of days where I was just like, I am not going to contact Sibylla Irwin back. I can't take another hit.
Well, and I remember, because when you and I first talked, you were very strong. And I said, you're good with this? And you said, yes, ma'am. I want to share my experience with others, because I want to be able to help others that are going through the same thing. And you were very strong. And then we started working on the sketch. And I remember that first iteration of the little guy in the corner, and how that impacted you. And you didn't expect it. Like you just had no expectation, but it was the eyes. You said those eyes. And then that I knew, I was like, oh my gosh. And it's that's one of the things I mean, I love helping people with the witness sketches, but I've had other experiences where I've sent an iteration and it has just devastated the person on the other end. And I'm, thousands of miles away, and I can't do anything about it. And that's one of the harder parts of doing what I do, is I know what I'm doing is going to have an impact on them as soon as they open it up. And I can't be there to hug them and to help them through it.
Yeah. But I just want to encourage anybody out there that's on the fence, and you may see this or other encounters, and you're saying, well, I didn't have this elaborate story. My story isn't an elaborate story, but it's my story, and it happened. It happened, and I'm dealing with, or, I've dealt with, and probably will continue to deal with the trauma associated with it.
Right.
So I don't want anybody to ever think that their story is too insignificant, too small, because it's your story and you matter.
And it impacted you. So after your mom pulled this spiral, probably a locator, or I mean, who knows what that thing is?
Mm-hmm.
Then they stopped, right? That was the end of.
Yeah, I had one more encounter, and I didn't realize it till we were working through all this, and it was like, wow, I remember, my son was off to college, and I had an apartment at the time, and then I remember waking up, and there was a gray and by the door. What is this about these doors that they're always standing by? But yeah, I was standing in the corner by my bedroom door, and that was the only other time that I can remember.
Do you think? And how many years had passed?
Oh, I mean, I would say like 30 years
Wow.
passed.
And did you have a recall of what? I mean, did the very same thing happen again? Do you know?
No, I was frozen. I couldn't move, and that was it. I don't remember anything.
Anything else?
No, there was nothing. But my grandfather had witnessed and I shared this with you, a UFO, and he said it looked like a beehive in the sky. He was sitting under a pear tree, and he had shared with my brother. He said these things follow families, and I do believe that's true.
Yeah.
I don't know how or what their method is, but I do believe that's true. And I would be a little curious to see if other people had the same type of encounters in their families.
So after your encounter stopped when you were 7 or 8 years old,
Mm-hmm.
how did you deal as a child? How did you deal with what your memories were, and not because you probably didn't talk to anybody about what had happened to you? How did you deal with all that as a child?
You just you learn how to disassociate really fast. You just separate it. I was able to compartmentalize it back then. I mean, there was no reason to keep talking about it. Nobody believed it. They just found all kinds of other excuses. So you find a way to, even at a young age, to compartmentalize something, and you go on with your life. But like I said, look at all these years later, how, it wasn't going to stay down there this time, And like I said, over the years, I would be triggered by, thinking, oh, here's that memory again. And I was able to neatly pack it away. But for whatever reason, this was like, I'll tell you what it was like. Like if I was to open up a tube of toothpaste and squirt it all out on the table, just pound the heck out of it, squirt it out all over the table. And it's impossible to put back. You're never going to be able to put that toothpaste back in that tube. And you're left with a big mess. And that's what it was like. These last few months was like that toothpaste all over the place, and me trying to say, how am I going to get this back in there?
Yeah. I so completely understand what you're saying, because I had a similar event happen to me in 1988. I was walking through a mall, and there happened to be a bookstore, and on the stand was Whitley Strieber's book, Communion. And those eyes, it was the same thing. Like I recognized instantly that face. Like it was her, and an instant recognition. And I just got so violently ill. I mean, I found the nearest bathroom, and I was just vomiting until I couldn't vomit anymore. And kind of like yourself, I was sitting there. I've never been triggered by anything like that in my entire life. And I'm sitting, in this stall by myself, and I'm shaking violently. And I know at that point, at some point, I'm going to have to deal with this. Just like you said, there was such a great metaphor. That's not coming back in the tube. Like I can't shove that down, because I had, experiences as a child, but I just kept calling them dreams because as a child, I didn't know what else to call them. So, and it never occurred to me to ask anybody else my age, like, hey, do you go to sleep every night and dream about aliens? I mean, it didn't even occur to me because I just thought, well, when you're a kid, you're just not thinking of those things. So I never asked a single soul about it. So it wasn't until, that event when I saw that face. And then, like you said, and that's not going back in the tube. And every time I would try to remember why or know how I knew her, I would just get these horrible headaches. And so, finally I did what you did, and I did the regressive hypnosis. And then, I discovered that I've been visited since I was, a toddler standing in a crib. But once I, it's almost like that's a release valve. Like there's something about the hypnosis that provided that release where I could talk about it, where I could examine it from a safe place. Like the hypnosis, how they do. I could examine it from a safe place. It was, it wasn't like it wasn't traumatic because I cried like all the way through the regression, but afterwards I was so much better. And then other memories started, came to me. I guess the one of the most important things to me is like for people like myself and you to know you are so not alone.
Oh,
you are not alone.
And that's why I wanted to do this too, because, I really want to encourage people, even if it's not reaching out to, a platform, just find somebody that's safe, that you can really share your experience with. I mean, I would reach out to Sibylla in a heartbeat if I were you. But, and this is hard when you're dealing with an alien abduction. Like I told you, Sibylla, it's almost, I wish I would have had a Sasquatch encounter because people could, at least recognize and say, oh, this is possible. But when you're talking about an alien abduction, I mean, I don't have a whole lot of people. A big support group, I can say, oh, this has been my experience. People look at you like you're crazy. And, you have to be making that up because that's impossible.
Yeah.
So it's still not, I don't feel that it's, you can't just, you got to watch what you say to people because.
100%. Did you ever like see movies like Close Encounters of the Third Kind? Did you see that?
Yes, after the fact, yes. And those were the things that would trigger the memory.
Me too.
Down the road. Yes.
Yeah.
And then you just neatly pack it back in.
And I so get that because it was the same for me. Like, you're a parent and you have to make a living and you have to take care of your kids emotionally. So you when you say pack it away, you absolutely do. Like when it comes up, you look at it and you say, yeah, I know that's real. And then it just goes right back in the closet and that door gets slammed hard. And then you just stay. I think it's one of the reasons I'm so good at staying, like living in the now, because if I start digging around in those closets, you can ruin everything. Yeah.
Yes. But sometimes, like I said, it altered who I am to be able to deal with it now, altered my thinking, just my belief system. I don't mean that. I mean, I'm definitely a Christian. But one of the things that happened, can I just share my experience in the hypnosis?
Oh, please. Yes.
And I finally said, well, everything that I know, and I have a big toolbox. I've been on a healing journey for a long time. So everything I would try to go to, it would maybe work like an hour or so or a couple hours. And it's just like, oh my God, how am I going to just operate and function? So I said, well, this is like, I'm going to go. And I had asked you to recommend somebody, and you did. And I would recommend this person in a heartbeat because I totally feel free I mean, even from all the pain and trauma of it. But so I went, I went to see hypnosis, and it was done over the phone. So don't ever underestimate the power of God, first of all, but what he can do through other people. I mean, and so the neat thing, and she was just so wise because she never approached it like, okay, you're this child on this operating table, and I want to know everything that happened to you because I don't need to relive that. I've been doing it for the last 2 months, and having to deal with it. But so she said, okay, since you're so good at disassociating yourself from, all this pain and hurt. I mean, like I said, I couldn't mask it anymore, but, you've done this all these years. So let's take this approach. So the way we approached it was me adult. I mean, there were some other things that, she did to go through the whole process. And you do feel like you're out of your body. I mean, you're just kind of like an outsider looking at it. It's really strange, but it was awesome. So she approached it like, okay, I'm the adult Lori, and here's this little 7-year-old that's being traumatized. So I was in that ship, and I saw, what was happening to me, and it was painful. I cried, and because I had empathy for the child Lori. And so she had asked me, is there any questions, you want to say to her? So I was able to say, I'm here. I love you. We're going to get through this. And so it was like the ministry I do with other people. It was really bizarre. I was doing that, through this hypnosis. And so that was kind of, that was really, that was healing. And then she asked me to look around the ship. And she said, like, what do you see? Now, when I was a child and experienced it, I just saw the room I was in. I didn't know anything else about what was going on. I just knew this thing was massive. And so she said, walk around, tell me what you see. I mean, and she was saying that they don't have control. They can't hurt you. And, and at one point in time, I saw those eyes and that, the leader. And I felt my body going through, twitching and all, just from fright, because I was really experiencing what I did as a child, but as an adult. So, and she says, well, walk around, tell me what you saw. And so I was describing everything to her. And I said, there's a door. Now, I never saw that door as a child because I was just concentrating on the trauma and what I was dealing with. And so I was able to open that door, and there were like corridors with all these rooms. But she had asked me, is there anything you want to ask them? And I said, yeah, I want to know why. Why did this happen to me? And why was I, chosen for this? And it's not a good thing being chosen for this. Believe me, it's no pony ride. So I was able to ask that question under hypnosis. And basically, they just let me know, we want your soul. And this is just me thinking about it. If you cause that much trauma to somebody's body, whether they're a child or an adult, you are chipping away at their soul. Because think of all the pain and suffering and all the years, all that stuff was coming out and all kinds of isms. And, I was sick for a long time. In Cleveland Clinic, they're like, you got 7 things wrong with you. We can't tell you.
Really?
Yeah. And the last thing was I had a PET scan, and I had all these nodules on my lungs, and it was just on the left side of my body, my lungs, my liver, breast, lymph nodes. It was like cancer. There were like 7 things. We can't figure this out because it doesn't make sense. They said there's a certain percent of our patients where we can't tell them what's wrong with them. And that we just can't, because it doesn't make sense. your red blood counts like sky high one day and then down, then everything's low. And they're like, we can't say, okay, if this is wrong, A's wrong, then B would, this has to be happening. That wasn't happening in my body. It was all over the place. And they're like, we just can't tell you. And Sibylla, I couldn't get out. I mean, literally, I had to take I was so sick that I would have to take one foot out and say, God, I can just get this one. I mean, it felt like I had those cinder blocks. That's what I felt like with my legs. And I could just get one out of the bed and then say, God, help me with the other. And I operated like that for a long time. And then I started having people fast and pray for me, and all of it just went away. But I really honestly think a lot of that was due through just carrying all that. Like I said, we're not designed to carry stuff. And I don't care how far you push it, it's going to affect you. And I do believe it affected my health at one point in time. But anyway, so, all the pain and suffering I went through, the trauma on that ship, I think they chip away at your soul, and then the person that was doing the hypnosis said, okay, go back and take back what was taken from you. And I did. And then she said, all right, go set all these other people free. And it was so liberating.
How many people did you see, do you think, on the ship?
Oh, there was hundreds. And there was just and it wasn't like a body of flesh and blood. It was like spirits. And I went and opened door after door and went all down those corridors and set those people free. And then I came back, and so she said, well, what else do you want to do? And I just looked at him, and it was so amazing because, I was like, I untied me, before I left, I said, no, you're not gonna, you'll no longer do this, and you're not taking, my soul belongs to God. And it was just like a dismantling. It was so bizarre. It was kind of like a transformer being broken down and dismantled, or a bunch of Legos, like you built this big, whatever it is, and just being dismantled piece by piece. And it was like God was rewiring narrow pathways in my brain, And so now I don't have to get all emotional about it like maybe 4 weeks ago. And because I feel set free. And then I was able to take little Lori's hand, and we walked down the stairs out of that ship. And then it was so awesome because it was no longer transparent. It just was a solid piece of object, and it just disappeared. So that was huge. There was definitely neural pathways, for the healing. So that's what I said. I would have never in a million years thought I would be dealing with so much pain of something that happened. That's why, I want to encourage you people, because it matters. This was very significant in my life. And it wasn't this, 50 million dog man's chasing and blood and gore, but it was something that was happening inside here and inside here and in here. And it was like a chain in my brain that needed to be broken off to stop the pain. And that's what happened during hypnosis. I don't know what other people need to do to be on a healing journey, but I think anybody that's gone through any traumatic encounter, I just don't think it just goes away. And I don't know what their steps might be or what their toolbox hold. I mean, I just say reach out to somebody. There's no reason to go through all these years. I'm 60 years old, so 50 something years of, dealing with this or trying to keep masking, covering up, pushing it down. But I'm finally set free.
Amen. That's
and it was like, and the way I described it was, I felt like there was a thorn in my soul. And there were days, Sibylla, and I think I mentioned this to you, I felt like somebody like reached into my chest, pulled it open, grabbed my heart out and just flung it out and let it be exposed to all the dirt and the air. That's how much pain. So I would encourage your listeners, before you judge people and before I judge people's encounter, you don't know what type of pain they may be going through.
Yeah.
Because mine was real. It was real. I mean, that's pretty heavy, like feeling like your heart's outside your body.
Right.
And not knowing, what you need to do. So,
well, we keep minimizing it. Those of us who've had these experiences, what I love so much about what you're sharing is that you give people hope that they don't have to just keep pushing it down and pushing it down, that you can actually heal from being taken.
I mean, it was like one session, boom. And it was just like, oh my God. I mean, it was like a weight, that thorn was pulled out and a weight lifted. I mean, and I have my joy back. I mean, I do. And that gut punch, that pain, I don't feel it. It's just not there anymore. Well, so there is hope beyond the encounter.
And when we talked yesterday, I could tell you were transformed. Plus, you can look at these images that we've created now, and it doesn't.
No, I did. I actually, after that day I spent with the hypnosis, I went back and I opened up my phone and not today, Satan. So I was able to look, each one of those in the eyes, and there was nothing associated with it. And it wasn't like a masking. This was like a total healing. So there is healing beyond the encounter for those that want it.
Yeah. So it kind of makes me wonder, what, in your opinion, do you think these beings are? Do you think they are from another dimension? Do you think they are of Satan? Like, what are your thoughts?
If you had the opportunity to look one in the eye, there's no soul. I mean, you cannot associate that with, I don't know if they're out of space or not, but if you have something that operates without a soul and there's nothing, I mean, like we talked about, there's such a coldness, it's just no emotion. No, our emotion, our seat of our emotions is our feelings, our thought process, your heart, when you're hurt or you could feel it, or when you're loved. But no, it's definitely evil, I believe. I'm not saying people don't have positive encounters. This wasn't one. So I can't speak to that. I'm just saying mine, especially if you want somebody's soul, that can't be from God. And that probably can't even be from out there. I mean, it could be, but I still, yes, I think it's evil for sure. What I experienced.
Right.
Definitely.
Is there anything else that you would like to share about your encounters, or just anything at all that you haven't shared that you want people to know or understand?
Like the situation with my brother, I did speak to him a little longer about and more in depth, because that was like my go-to person other than you. And he had shared with me when they would take me away, they would be telling him, don't remember. And I think that's why I was never taken back to my bed, because they weren't only dealing with me, because we were back then, boys and girls could sleep. We were all young in the same room. So I thought that was interesting that he, that came to his memory, that it was telling him not to remember what happened. He would fight it, try to fight it. And then another thing I was brought to my memory during hypnosis is, so I was wondering the why question, why did this happen to me? And I'm not maybe this is why, or maybe not. But I remember like 6 years old, 7 years old, I would, I was really skinny and I could fit in my windowsill. And I would be, open the window up. We lived in the country, and I would be staring up at the stars. And then I would be always asking the question, is there more out there? And night after night, I would be in that windowsill looking like, and I don't know why I asked that question. I think I have an old soul, even as a young child.
Yes.
And maybe somehow, unknowingly, maybe I invited, maybe I opened that door. I don't know.
Mhm.
But I thought that was curious. I thought that was um, pretty amazing that I had totally forgotten that I would be sitting there asking, what else is there out there?
And specifically towards space.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So watch the doors you open.
Isn't that fascinating?
Pray for too, because you just might get it. Because I asked God to reveal, what was going on, and He sure did, and a lot of pain and suffering came from that. But on the other side of that, a rainbow, there's peace and joy.
Yeah.
And I feel like I'm in a good place.
Yeah. Well,
Mhm.
we're both people of faith, and I know that you will take the experience that you've had and you will use it to support other people, and not just alien abductees, but anybody who has gone through any kind of a trauma and then they were validated, and then they haven't spoken about it. I think they can come to you.
Oh, absolutely.
And
Absolutely. Especially now that I'm on the other side of it too, because I always say you can't give away what you don't have,
yeah,
you know. And I want to thank Mark too, because God really used him. And like I said, doesn't even have a clue who I am, or but because he was bold, and because he was vulnerable, and because he might have been on the fence. I don't know. I don't know enough about his story. From that point on, I never went back. I stopped it, and I will go back and listen to his story. But, I
yes,
was just stuck in that place. But for him to share as much as I heard, and for how God used that to, make a difference, definitely and just change my whole paradigm. Now my mind isn't on tilt on certain things. It's like, wow, when people say they've encountered stuff, don't, you know, try to listen to what they say. That's all. We just want to be heard.
exactly.
We want to move beyond this. I don't know about other people, but I know I needed to move beyond where I was. I didn't want to stay stuck. It's a miserable place.
Yes.
Place to be.
And look at you now.
Yes.
I am
I told you I want to go to the rooftops.
I am so happy and so proud of you. Because a
Yeah.
lot of people would have stopped. Like a lot of people, after they saw that first iteration, would have just put it down and say, I'm sorry, I can't do this. I can't do this. But you dug in. You were like, you know what? This is not going to beat me. I've had
No,
enough.
because I'm more than a conqueror through Christ Jesus who strengthens me. And I knew it, but those days I was going through it, it's like, oh God, you gotta help me. I mean, I know I'm a conqueror, I'm more than a conqueror. But boy, I mean, if you're experiencing anything like that, my heart goes out to you, because I was there, um, just the pain and suffering, and you don't have to keep it. You don't have to keep it to yourself. And sometimes you got, like Mark, take that risk. Look at how it's blessing my life. And I have joy. I can go out and now make a difference, not just with these encounters, but anybody that's hurting. I mean, my hurt may be different than somebody else's hurt or pain, but it's still pain. And I can still relate, and I can still pray for people. I can still try to comfort people, because this world, there's so much anger and bitterness, and we need love. We
Yes, we
need joy.
do.
So, but
Lori.
I want to thank you, Sabella. I mean, you just don't know, and maybe you do, but I'm going to tell you anyway, how special you are, and everybody tells you, and how God is just using it. I always tell you that it's beyond your gift. You have an anointing, not only in what you do and how you recreate these sketches. It's beyond, it's so much bigger than that. It's the love that you have in your heart and you pour out, and you really do care. I mean, you truly care. You have empathy, you have love. And I'm telling you, that's my journey began when Mark gave his testimony and God was opening up the door to make a way. So I want to thank you for your heart. And you're just pretty special.
Well, thank you. I feel exactly the same way about you. I just wish I could reach through the camera right now and give you a massive hug.
Yes.
And so much love to you.
I love you.
I love you. And thank you so much for being willing to share your journey from, 7-year-old to now. And I know your story is going to impact people, and people are going to reach out to me and probably to you too. And thank you for being willing to have so much courage and fight through all of this.
Yes, absolutely. It's worth it.
And come out on the other side.
Yeah, amen. And then the last thing I wanted to mention is during that session, the woman that I was dealing with had given me an image, asked me like a couple things. She says, when, if this comes back, here's another tool. And so she gave me an image behind her, and it was kind of like the earth and, space. And so I'm able to push back a lot of negativity just by, the exercise that she, showed me. And then she had given me asked me to ask God for an image. And God gave me that image of a waterfall. And so I think that's so significant for my journey. It's indicative of cleansing. And, and this will be another tool I can put in my toolbox to be able to, bless my journey and bless others.
I know you are. You have blessed me just knowing you, and this time we've spent together. And it's not over. We have work to do. I kind of feel like.
Amen.
Amen.
God bless you, Sabella.
God bless you. And thank you so much for being here. And I will be in touch.
Okay. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Everyone needs a helping hand. Everyone needs someone to rely on. Yes, everyone needs a friend. So let's come together, celebrate each other, stand united as one. We lift our hands up and pray, lay all our love before Him with all of our faith. He is the change within